New videos every day.
Hey friends, this is Dr. Echols. Welcome back. We are beginning the second video in a 3-video series on Eat Well, Move Well, and Think Well. We've already covered Think Well. Let's move on to Move Well. What does it mean to move well? Well, what is it like when you can't move well? Well, you're stiff and you're sore and you can't bend over and touch your toes. It's hard getting up and down out of chairs. It's hard to turn your head and your neck. I get people in here, and when I start doing their examination, I say, okay, Mr. Jones, turn your head to the left. And they go like this. And I go, my God, man, how did you even drive over here? You know, you got to be able to look over your shoulder and see the 18-wheelers that are on the freeway, or you're going to, get run over. So moving well is a very, very important part of being well. Now, what causes us not to be able to move well? Well, the main thing is that there's problems in the joints, whether it can be in the joints of the fingers, the elbows, the wrists, the knees, the lower back. When those joints don't have the proper nutrition or they get misaligned in some way, that can start to cause a problem with moving well. Now, one of the other reasons that joints don't move well is due to the fact that somebody has got an old injury in those joints. And when they have that injury, the joints get misaligned and then they stop functioning properly. I had a patient once that came in, and I was doing an interview with him, and we were talking about any old injuries that he had because he couldn't really move his head that good and his joints were kind of stiff. So I kept pressing him and saying, have you been in any accidents? Have you had any kind of problems, any automobile accidents, any slips or falls? No, doctor, no, I haven't. I haven't had any problems. But yet he was in pretty bad shape. So I kept wondering, well, where did all this come from? Well, he came back on a subsequent visit, the next visit, and he says, Doctor, I was thinking about what you asked me if I'd ever been in any problems before, and I forgot to tell you I was actually once run over by a train. And I thought that was pretty funny that he could actually forget that. Actually, it's probably not so surprising. If I was run over by a train, I probably wouldn't want to remember it anyway. However, when joints get misaligned, they start to wear abnormally, and that starts to cause arthritis. Now, arthritis, basically, if you break that word down, arth means joint, and itis means inflammation. So arthritis is inflammation of the joint. So it's best to think about arthritis in terms of something that we can all understand, and that's the front end alignment on our car. When the tire gets knocked out of alignment, let's say you were going and you pulled up a little too far and you bumped your tire on the curb. And that kind of knocked the tire out of alignment, but not so much that you really didn't notice it. You really noticed it. What that's going to do is it's going to set up a degenerative process in that tire. It's going to start wearing that tire out. And a few weeks later or a few months later, you're going to get out. You're going to bend over to pick up the newspaper and you're going to go, wow, half of my tire is bald. It's actually wearing the rubber off of the tire. That is because tires were not meant to go down the road like this. They're supposed to go down the road like this. The same thing is true in our spines. When our spine gets knocked out of alignment, and believe me, it doesn't have to be anything as dramatic as a train injury. It could be that you just had a little fender bender in the car. It could be that as a baby, you had a very tough delivery, and the doctor maybe turned or rotated your head or used forceps or some other means to get you out a little bit quicker. That can cause spinal problems. And growing up as a child, we have thousands and thousands of falls and slips. We're learning to ride our bicycle. We fall off the roof. I was always jumping off the roof trying to fly, doing all kinds of strange things as a kid. So we all have those bumps and bruises to our spine that can just gently kind of jar the spine and knock it out of the normal alignment. You might be sore or maybe even not for a few days. But left there and kind of driven on that spine for the next 20 years, it sets up that degenerative process. And then we can't move as well. That's where chiropractic can really excel because it can help restore that normal movement to the spine by helping the joints be in the proper alignment and in the proper movement area. This actually brings dramatic relief to the person. They can actually move their head and move their shoulder. I had a guy, matter of fact, he was in the office today, and after we'd finished working on the shoulder joint, he said, "Oh my gosh," he goes, "this is my tell. I usually couldn't do this." He goes, "And now I can do it a whole lot better. I just feel the slightest bit of pain there." So doing a whole lot better just by rehabilitating those muscles and those joints. Now, another thing that can cause joint problems, and I've recently discovered this just in the last few years, is that sugar and white flour can often cause joint problems. How does that happen? Well, sugar and white flour are very inflammatory to the body. You start ingesting those things, your body doesn't like it, starts to produce inflammation in the body, starts to get in those joints and make them real inflamed. Eliminate sugar and white flour from your diet or drastically reduce it, and you'll notice that the inflammatory burden in your body starts to go down considerably. That's one of the things I do in my practice is I help people where they can comfortably get off of those kind of products and their inflammation goes down. Of course, a lot of other things like cholesterol and blood pressure and stuff start to improve as well. There's another thing that can cause joint pain or back pain, and that's pain that's being referred to from our internal organs. The adrenal glands are two small little walnut-sized glands that sit up on top of our kidneys. And oftentimes when a person has weak adrenal glands due to poor nutrition or some other kind of problem, those adrenal glands can cause our muscles in our back to become weak, and it can start predisposing us to having back problems. I had a chiropractor friend of mine once who told us a story about the patient that came into his office, and he was out snowmobiling, and his snowmobile got stuck, and he lifted the snowmobile up, and when he did, he pulled his back and he couldn't walk after that, and they brought him into the office. And he said, "Hey, Bill, what happened?" And he told him the story. He says, "Well, haven't you ever done that before? Haven't you ever lifted the snowmobile out of the snow before?" He says, "Oh yeah." He says, "I do it every day." He says, "Well, how come today when you did it, your back starts to hurt?" And he says, "I don't know." So he checked his adrenal glands and found that those were very, very weak. Gave him some stuff to really get his adrenal glands boosted back up. His back pain disappeared immediately. So oftentimes back pain isn't just back pain. It can be referred to by the different organs in our body. Another really good example, and I see this a lot in my practice, and when I first started being a doctor of chiropractic, I actually did not know this. Right shoulder blade pain is oftentimes not just right shoulder blade pain. It's actually being referred to that area by the gallbladder. Now, the gallbladder is just a little sac that sits up here by the liver, and it stores bile. And that is very important for us in digesting fats. And when our diet is full of not good fats and fast foods and things that we probably shouldn't be eating, that bile can get real sluggish and it can start to develop stones in there. And when that happens, that gallbladder can become inflamed and sore, and it refers pain right back here, and also it can refer pain back up into the neck. I know I've had this myself, and when my patients used to come in, we would used to adjust that area and adjust it over and over and over with only minimal results, because that's really not where the problem was. It was coming from the gallbladder. Now, I have since learned that when I see people with that, I always check their gallbladder to make sure that it's not a problem. If it is, we've got some wonderful whole food concentrates that we can give, mainly made out of beets, because that just flushes that gallbladder out wonderfully, thins that bile, and within hours, if not a day or so, they are completely over it without even adjusting them. Very, very quick response. So, of course, the medical approach to treating gallbladder problems is usually just to remove it, but if you'd like to keep your organs as an alternative, trying some nutritional therapy may be in your best benefit. You can always get it removed if that doesn't work. That's it for today. I hope you've learned something today and benefited from the information that I've given you. Stay tuned for our final segment in our 3-part video on Eat Well, Move Well, and Think Well. Next, we will be taking up how to eat well.
If you liked this video, we have hundreds of more alternative videos ranging from sexual health to psychology to mind control. So if you liked it, go ahead and click on me to enter the Psychetruth channel.